Okay, for the introduction, political science is study of a power, politics, and government and how decisions are made in a country and society. It also helps people to understand how laws are created, how leaders are elected, and how citizens interact with the government. Main subfiles include a government system like democracy and monarchy, and a political theory which explore the ideas and thinkers like Karl Marx, Maxim, and John Locke. Classical liberalism, focusing on the justice, freedom, and powers. Human rights belong to all the individuals regardless of a race, religion, gender, or background. These rights are universal, invisible, and interdependent. International law requires the government to protect and promote human rights through the treaties and legal obligations. Political science is essential to understand democracy, governance, and human rights. It also encourages people to become informed, analytical, and responsible citizens. These studies aim to examine the historical development of a political sign and how a political regimes are respected and violated basic rights over time.
So, in this part of the video, we are going to talk on how political ideologies influence democracy and human rights. So, we're going to start with liberalism. So, liberalism is all about protecting individual freedom and encouraging public participation. So, thinkers like John Locke believe that governments only work with the people's involvement. So, this shifted democracy from being elite focused to people centered. Later on, modern liberalism came into the picture. So it focuses on how helping people first is better before expecting them to participate. So it is became known as liberalism, where the government supports citizens' well-being so they can truly use their freedom. So overall, we can say that liberalism actually helped in shaping democracy into something that is more fairer and also inclusive. Okay, so moving on to capitalism. So, capitalism is an idea that private individuals, not the government, control businesses and industries for profit. So, when democracy first started, it doesn't focus much on the economics. But with capitalism, freedom expanded into economy too, giving people the right to own property and run businesses. However, some people argue that capitalism is actually go against democracy concept with issues like inequality and the rich having too much power in politics. So while capitalism shaped parts of democracy, it also sparked some debates about what democracy should protect. Okay, so moving on, let's talk about authoritarianism. So, authoritarianism is basically the opposite of democracy. So, authoritarian leaders take power through things like military coups and don't rely on election. So, they use violence, propaganda, and media control to stay in power. So, in many places like Latin America or parts of Asia and the Middle East, uses this system, which has caused to poverty, poor education, bad healthcare, and also corruption. This showed that leaders only cared about staying in power and not the people's well being. So, because of this, the people living under authoritarian rule started to reject it and push for a system that is more fair and transparent, aka democracy. So, to wrap it up, we can see that liberalism helped strengthen the democracy with rights and participation, while capitalism brought economic freedom and authoritarianism showed us the danger of power without accountability. So, understanding these ideologies will help us to see how actually democracy and human rights are evolved around over time.
Political systems protect human rights by having a representative government, individual rights, and the rule of law. This means citizens have the power to vote, choose their leaders, and take part in shaping national policies. When people are involved, it helps prevent abuse of power and protects freedom. At the same time, NGOs also help political system by addressing human rights issues, especially in places where the government is not effective. They support individuals and groups by promoting awareness and defending rights. So, political system and NGOs work together to ensure that human rights are respected and protected. Non governmental organizations or NGOs are voluntary groups formed to handle issues like dissatisfaction, or rights violation in social, political, or environmental areas. They work either directly or indirectly to stop human rights abuse and help educate the public about their rights. NGOs also provide services such as humanitarian aid, legal protection, or skill training for victims. For example, in times of war or natural disasters, NGOs step in quickly to help affected people. Their contribution is important because they support the community and push for changes that governments might not act on immediately. NGOs also use media to create public awareness. They organize campaigns and demonstrations to bring attention to certain issues. With help from the media, they can attract public support and show dissatisfaction towards the government. Social media plays a big role today. Platforms like Instagram, X, or TikTok allow NGOs to spread their message faster and wider. When something goes viral, it often leads to national or even international discussion. This puts pressure on leaders to respond, thus, it helps more people understand what's happening in the world. To illustrate the Suara in Malaysia, Suara uses social media to inform the public about human rights issues like policies abuse and unfair laws. Suara reviewed the Security Offences Special Measures SOSMA Act. SOSMA is an act that allows people to be detained for long periods of time without being charged. Swarm was against the act as they thought it abused human rights. By doing this, Swarm helps Malaysians understand their rights and encourage people to speak up for justice and fairness of human rights.
Okay, now I will continue by explaining how political system, although meant to protect human rights, can actually be used to violate them. In theory, political systems are built to support democracy and ensure that everyone's rights are respected. But in practice, some governments use their political power to control, discriminate, and silence certain groups. A strong example of this is the apartheid system in South Africa. It was not just discrimination, it was legal and systematic. The government created laws and institutions that deny basic rights and dignity to people just because of their race. This shows how political power can be abused to justify human rights violation on a large scale. Now let's take a closer look at what apartheid really was and how it violated human rights. The word apartheid means separation in Afrikaans, and it was a system of racial segregation officially implemented in South Africa starting in 1948. It was introduced by the White League National Party, and its main goal was to maintain political and economic control for the white minority. This was done by oppressing black, color, and Indian communities through laws and that control almost every part of their life, where they could live, work, study, and even who they could marry. Apartheid clearly violated basic human rights like equality, dignity, and freedom of movement. It turned racism into something legal, showing how political system can be used to deny people their rights instead of protecting them. Next, I will explain the key features of how human rights were violated under the apartheid system. First, under racial segregation and discrimination, the government classified people based on race. Non-white communities were forced to live separately and were treated as inferior in every aspect of life, from housing to education to public transport. Second, non-white South Africans had no political rights. They couldn't vote, couldn't be elected, and had no voice in the government. Even the legal system was biased, always siding with the apartheid regime. Third, their rights to education and employment were also restricted. The Bantu Education Act gave black South Africans a poor quality education, only to prepare them for a low-skilled abroad. Meanwhile, better jobs and opportunities were reserved for the white population. All of this show how apartheid was built on injustice and how it violated basic rights of millions of people in a systematic and legalist way. Now I will move on to how apartheid eventually came to an end and the legacy it left behind. Even though the apartheid government enforced strict and harsh law, many South Africans continued to resist. Movements like the ANC and PAC fought for freedom, even after being banned and having their leaders like Nelson Mandela imprisoned. One turning point was the Sharpeville massacre, which shocked the world and led to the international pressure, including economic and cultural sanctions against South Africa. By the late 1980s, the country faced serious internal unrest and economic decline. In 1990, Nelson Mandela was finally released and political negotiation began. The first democratic election was held in 1994 and Mandela became the country's first black president. The end of apartheid marked not just a political change but a major step towards equality. It also proved that unity, resilience, and international support can help bring down even the most oppressive system.
Okay, for the conclusion, is a political science play a vital role in understanding democracy and human rights through our history. Modern democracy is just not a system of government, but it promotes equality, justice, and a human's dignity. NGO, the United Nations, and national constitutions help protect human rights through abuse still occur in some regimes. Political science empowers the citizens, promotes responsible leadership, and upholds the freedom and justice. Sustaining democracy requires inclusive governance, legal accountability, and political education.